Donald Trump is having a terrible Monday morning. Late last night, he posted an image of himself with the United States of America, Canada, and Greenland all having the American flag, and other parts of the Caribbean and South America as well. You see right there, and he has the photo of himself being surrounded by European leaders. If he thinks that's making him look tough, he's sadly mistaken. The American people know how utterly pathetic he is. The world knows how utterly pathetic he is. And we all saw what went down this morning, as the MeidasTouch had predicted, where Ghislaine Maxwell, the convicted sex trafficker, invoked her Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination during the House oversight deposition of her. We predicted this was going to happen. She refused to take any questions from members of Congress other than reading an opening statement. Her lawyer, David Oscar Marcus, used this opportunity to audition for clemency to Donald Trump. I mean, how utterly pathetic can you get? Here's what David Oscar Marcus posted. Ghislaine Maxwell invoked her constitutional right to silence this morning before James Comer and the House Oversight Committee. Here is the statement I gave to the committee explaining why. Members of the committee, on my advice, Ghislaine Maxwell will respectfully invoke her Fifth Amendment right to silence and decline to answer questions today, even though she would very much like to answer your questions. Can we pause there? She answered the questions for Todd Blanche several months ago. She didn't invoke the Fifth Amendment when Donald Trump's former criminal defense attorney, turned number 2 at the Department of Justice, who's close friends with David Oscar Marcus, was asking her questions, and she lied to her teeth and actually further incriminated her. So now she has to invoke the Fifth, now that the Epstein files have come out and we see that she's lying yet again. Then he goes on to say she must remain silent because Miss Maxwell has a habeas petition currently pending that demonstrates that her conviction rests on a fundamentally unfair trial. Pause. What are you talking about? Every prisoner technically has the right to petition for the writ of habeas corpus, although Donald Trump may disagree that there's actually such thing as a writ of habeas corpus. So that's not something that any other prisoner in the United States doesn't have, and her appeals are done. She lost in front of the United States Supreme Court. They rejected her appeal on the child sex trafficking case where she was convicted in the Southern District of New York. So didn't you say that you couldn't have her testify in August because you were waiting for this Supreme Court ruling? But you just made that up. So now you're just going to say habeas petition. And technically, every prisoner in the United States can potentially petition for habeas corpus for the rest of their sentence. So in other words, she's never going to speak unless she's given clemency by Donald Trump. Let's keep on reading. And it goes on to say, her conviction rests on a fundamentally unfair trial. The Supreme Court disagreed with that. The Circuit Court of Appeal disagreed with that. The District Court disagreed with that. But you and Ghislaine hold all of the answers. Goes on to say, for example, jurors lied during voir dire to secure seats on the jury, and the government promised immunity, then broke that promise. Newly disclosed documents now demonstrate these facts conclusively. If this committee and the American public truly want to hear the unfiltered truth about what happened, there is a straightforward path. Ms. Maxwell is prepared to speak fully and honestly if granted clemency by President Trump. Only she can provide the complete account. Some may not like what they hear, but the truth matters. For example, both President Trump and President Clinton are innocent of any wrongdoing. Ms. Maxwell alone can explain why, and the public is entitled to that explanation. Thank you. Okay, so she refuses to speak. You're auditioning for clemency right now. What questions did she not want to answer? Oh, here are the questions right here. On December 17, 2025, you filed a habeas petition stating that 4 named co-conspirators and 25 men who entered into secret settlements were not indicted as part of the investigation. Is that statement accurate? 2. Who were the 4 co-conspirators and the 25 men other than Jeffrey Epstein who sexually abused minors at Epstein's Island and at his other places? 3. What information, evidence, or personal knowledge do you have regarding why these individuals were not charged? 4. It is well documented that you, Donald Trump, Mr. Epstein, had a social relationship, and there are several photographs of you together. Did you or Mr. Epstein ever arrange, facilitate, or provide access of underage girls to Donald Trump? But you wouldn't answer those questions this morning? Here's what Democratic Congressmember Ro Khanna had to say regarding the deposition this morning. Play this clip.
I submitted to Comer a letter with 6 or 7 questions. Things like, who were the other co-conspirators? Who were the other men who raped these underage girls? Did she have any conversations about a deal with Donald Trump? Now, she's taken a blanket Fifth Amendment on any question. And my view is that many of my questions don't in any way incriminate her. So we'll see what she does. But there's 7 questions that I have specifically asked. And the assumption is she's pleading the fifth to each one of those. And the American people will see that there's an inconsistency. Why did she not plead the fifth when Blanche asked her questions? And now she's pleading the fifth about things that don't implicate her, but may implicate many of the other powerful people in the Epstein class that committed these crimes.
Here's what Congresswoman Stansberry, the Democrat, had to say. Play this clip.
The United States government is engaged in an active cover-up of the largest sex trafficking scandal and influence peddling scandal in the history of the United States, and Donald Trump is right at the center of it. And the person who is living to provide the evidence, who knows what is going on, is trying to invoke the fifth to buy her clemency. So let's be clear on what we saw here today. This was an effort to essentially try to secure her pardon by keeping her mouth shut. And we will not allow this silence to stand.
More from Democratic Congresswoman Stansberry. Let's play it.
We know that there are multiple administration officials, including Howard Lutnick, Elon Musk, who served as the appointee for the DOJ efforts in the White House. We know that the Secretary of Navy, we know that Steve Bannon, we know that there are more than 3 dozen associates, family members, and individuals directly associated with Donald Trump named in those files. Now, there are now at least 9 or 10 other countries across the world that have opened investigations or forced their leaders to step down because of their mere association with Jeffrey Epstein.
And here's Congresswoman Stansberry again. Let's play this clip.
Now, we have a lot of questions for Ms. Maxwell with regards to what actually happened in Epstein's affairs, who was directly involved in the sex trafficking, money laundering, and influence peddling scheme that she and Jeffrey Epstein were involved in, how Donald Trump was involved and whether or not he committed any crimes himself, as did his many associates who are named in the Department of Justice files. Let us be clear that Donald Trump is not only named thousands of times in the latest release from the Department of Justice, he is named over 38,000 times in the files that were released 2 weeks ago alone. And we know that that only represents half of the files that the Department of Justice has in its possession, including files that were used for direct investigations of perpetrators, people who committed crimes, people who were co-conspirators in those crimes, and individuals who knew of those crimes.
True self-reliance starts with taking control of your own health. Armra Colostrum is nature's original solution. Colostrum is packed with over 400 bioactive nutrients that fortify gut health and strengthen immune health to build resilience at the cellular level. Because when you invest in your health, you invest in your ability to show up, think clearly, and stay in control no matter what life throws your way. Today's environment is filled with toxins, processed foods, modern stressors, and immune disruptors. Nourish your microbiome and strengthen your barriers to support your immune health. Armra Colostrum is your secret to feeling strong, vibrant, and confident again. Not seeing results with your current routine? Colostrum is packed with 400 plus bioactive nutrients that work like a blueprint for your body, promoting your cells' natural renewal processes to support skin, hair, gut health, metabolism, immune health, lean muscle, and whole body vitality. Strengthen your gut integrity and support healthy fat metabolism to empower your body with the blueprint to revitalize health from the inside out. We've worked out a special offer for my audience. Receive 30% off your first subscription order. Go to armra.com/Meidas or enter Meidas to get 30% off your first subscription order. That's armra.com/Meidas.
How about Democratic Congressmember Subramanian? Let's play it.
Just to reiterate, Ghislaine Maxwell should have no hope of ever getting out of prison. But today, she, through her lawyer, explicitly stated that she wants to be out of prison through a clemency that this president would grant. And she's campaigning over and over again to get that pardon from President Trump. And this president has not ruled it out. And so that is why she's continuing to not cooperate with our investigation. The reality is that she is a monster. She should be behind bars. She should stay there. She should answer our questions, but she is not willing to do so because she is looking for that pardon and looking to absolve any people related to this administration. So we will continue to call for this president to completely rule out a pardon.
And here's Democratic Congressmember Walkinshaw. Let's play it.
Ghislaine Maxwell is a monster. She facilitated, aided, and abetted Epstein's crimes, engaged in those crimes. She was the enforcer who threatened the victims and the survivors of those crimes. And today we looked into the eyes of that monster in the deposition. What we did not get were any substantive answers to the questions that were asked that would advance our investigation, to help us learn who were the other men involved in these crimes, to help us learn who were the others who knew about these crimes, to help us learn what exactly was said between Todd Blanche and Ghislaine Maxwell that led her to be transferred to a minimum security prison. What we did get was another episode in her long-running campaign for clemency from President Trump. And President Trump could end that today. He could rule out clemency for Ghislaine Maxwell, the monster. He could rule out a pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell, the monster. The question for all of us today is, why hasn't he done that, and why won't he do that?
Here's Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Here's what she had to say.
Level. So the fact that this woman is continuing to invoke the Fifth Amendment tells us exactly what my colleagues have already stated. She is a monster. She does not care. She has no remorse. She is not seeking to bring about some kind of closure for these women. She doesn't care. And frankly, it seems like this administration overall does not care. All they care about is protecting the powerful and protecting pedophiles. They will do anything to distract from that, including deciding to put up in the middle of Black History Month the most racist thing that we've ever seen come out of a White House. But I am here to tell you that House Democrats, specifically on the Oversight Committee and the Judiciary Committee, as we do have Pam Bondi coming before us here in a minute, we will not be deterred. We will not be distracted. We know who it is that needs to be held accountable, and we will go in and we will make sure that we continue to dig. This will not stop us because his co-conspirator decided that she was going to try to play games with us this morning. I got news for you, Ms. Maxwell. We're not done. We're going to continue to go.
Now, next you have Kevin Hassett, Donald Trump's national economic advisor. He wants to talk about, well, he's there to talk about the economy. So he's going on CNBC this morning. And while he laughs and mocks the American people, he says that basically we should be expecting job losses because AI is going to replace American jobs. Let's play it.
The other thing is that there's a pretty big decline in the labor force because illegals leaving the country. And so the break-even job number is quite a bit lower than it was under Joe Biden, when there were people, basically coming across the border willy-nilly. And so I think that you should expect slightly smaller job numbers that are consistent with high GDP growth right now. And that one shouldn't panic if you see a sequence of numbers that are lower than you're used to, because again, population growth is going down and productivity growth is skyrocketing. It's an unusual set of circumstances.
Kevin. And then he also says this morning that there's a good chance that job creation is going to be lagging. In other words, we should prepare for another horrible jobs report coming out this week. Play this clip.
The open question really is what's going to happen to jobs as productivity goes up? And I think that there's a chance that job creation lags. Productivity skyrockets, profits skyrocket, GDP skyrocket. But then all of a sudden, like, you're making 20 widgets and you can make 20 widgets with a fewer person, and then that person has to find a new job. I think that kind of transition could happen.
And so no wonder You're seeing polls like this. This was from CNN this morning, as Harry Enton describes that Trump's base with non-college voters is absolutely collapsing. Let's play it.
Through this.
Yeah, okay. So if you know anything about Donald Trump, you know that he built his 2 presidential victories on winning voters without a college degree, while Donald Trump's base with non-college voters is absolutely collapsing. What are we talking about here? Well, why don't we just take a look? Voters without a college degree on Donald Trump. Look at this. Back in 2024, he won those voters over Kamala Harris by 14 points. You come over to this side of the screen. What's his net approval rating with him? He is underwater by 9 points. That's a 23-point switcheroo with his base of non-college voters. He is absolutely collapsing with the group of voters that helped put him into the White House.
And finally, we have Congressmember Steele, Republican Congress member, who's saying that it is unfair to request that ICE remove their masks and actually issue judicial warrants instead of made-up administrative warrants. Here, play it.
I think the area where we could reach agreement is things in place like body cameras. I think that's a spot where Democrats and Republicans can come to the table, one of the Democratic demands. I think some of the other Democratic demands put at risk and jeopardize the safety of the members of law enforcement who are out there doing an incredibly difficult job.
Would you be like taking off their masks and having a badge that shows who they are?
Well, they're known, obviously, to their supervisors. I think if we look at what plays out in many South American countries when these individuals are doxxed, often they'll get a video that'll show them or their wife or their children is a pretty clear threat. And so the environment that many of these men and women are in is an incredibly difficult.
That was this morning, folks. We'll keep you posted every step of the way. Hit subscribe. Help us get to 6 billion subscribers. Thanks so much for watching.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.